The way to Jerusalem from the south starts in Hebron, first mentioned in Genesis 13. Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord. Later, Abraham purchased the area around the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah are buried in the tomb of the patriarchs. I spoke to Gary Cooperberg, a longtime Hebron area resident, regarding the importance of this place, the second holiest city in Judaism.
If you want to go in the path of the Bible, if you want to come to Israel and see history as it continues and as it's related to the very beginnings, this is where you start. According to Jewish tradition, the grave of Adam and Eve are in underneath this building in the cave of Machpelah. As a matter of fact, it was because of the fact that Adam and Eve are buried here that Abraham realized the sanctity of this location and bought the cave of Machpelah as a burial place for himself and his wife and his children. Ephron, the Hittite, he was the owner of the property, and he didn't want to sell it. He wanted to give it to Abraham. In fact, to make sure that Abraham wouldn't buy it from him, he came up with an exorbitant price. He figured Abraham wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. 400 silver shekels, which was an enormous amount of money. Abraham didn't bicker, he didn't argue, he didn't handle. He took out the money and handed it to him on the spot and bought the thing, right before his eyes, before the entire town leadership, and it was signed officially.
The ancient title deed is the Bible. So the field and the cave that is in it were deeded to Abraham by the sons of Heth as property for a burial place. Of course, the visibly prominent structure atop Machpelah is not quite as old as Abraham, but the building is still one of the oldest in the world in continuous use for 2,000 years.
King Herod was the one that erected the building, and if you look at the stones, you'll see that they're very similar to the stones of the Western Wall. As a matter of fact, King David established his kingdom in Hebron before he moved to Jerusalem. He ruled here for 7.5 years. It's always been a commandment for a Jew to live in the land. But obviously, when we did not have control here, and when our neighbors were not so amenable to us, it was not easy to do.
Though Jews always lived in Hebron, under Islamic rule they were barred from entering the tomb of the patriarchs and only allowed to pray at this corner of the external wall. Over the centuries, this spot was visited by some of the greatest rabbis in Judaism. Despite the anti-Jewish undercurrents, the community prospered. But in 1929, a bloody pogrom erupted and British mandatory authorities failed to properly protect the Jewish residents.
Actually, in 1929, there was a rumor that the Jews had desecrated the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And the Arabs whipped up a tremendous frenzy, and pogroms took place in Jerusalem, up in the north, and down here in Hebron as well.
67 Jews were massacred, dozens injured, with reports of rape, mutilations, children beheaded, and old rabbis castrated. On a more positive note, 28 Arab families hid Jews in their homes, saving many. It took British reinforcements 5 hours to arrive on the scene, too little, too late, and the British reaction was to forcibly evacuate the survivors, ostensibly for their own good. Jewish property was occupied by Arabs until after 1967. So we have here the map of the Kingdom of Israel, Malchut Yisrael, and right here the area that we're at today in Hebron.
This is the Avraham Avinu Synagogue. In 1492, when Columbus came to the New World, there were people who thought he was Jewish because that was the year of the Spanish Inquisition. And Jews had to find new homes. And many of them found Hebron in that year, in the same year. And they came here to this area and they built this synagogue. And the community grew around the synagogue. It was a Ladino community. They spoke Ladino, which is Spanish Yiddish. And this synagogue was destroyed by the Jordanians in 1948. We found the original blueprints, and we had photographs, and it was rebuilt.
Today, 600 Jews live in Hebron, amidst an Arab population of 120,000. Another 7,000 Jews live in the nearby community of Kiryat Arba. We head north on the road to Jerusalem, making a stop in Bethlehem, the hometown of King David and birthplace of Yeshua, Jesus. It's lunchtime, so we go straight to the El Karawan restaurant, owned and operated by Abu Zuz, who makes the best kebab in the Middle East. How do you say your name?
Abu Zuz.
Abu Zuz.
My son, Zuz.
Uh-huh.
The same name. Zuzu, my son Zuzu.
Is that like a
Abu
form
Zuz.
of Joseph?
Yes,
It
Joseph.
is Joseph.
Yes,
Yeah.
Joseph.
Very good.
Is Joseph.
My father's name is Joseph.
Nice to meet you, father. Nice to meet you.
And my name is Barry, which means, you would say Baraka.
Baraka.
We order the mixed grill from Abu Zuz, which of course includes the famous kebab. Abu Zuz shows us his secret recipe, starting with a prime cut of lamb, which of course has to be chopped and re-chopped, with a sprinkling of salt, cumin, pepper, followed by more chopping. Then parsley, green pepper, garlic, onion.
Parsley and garlic and onion.
More chopping, mixing. Everything is done by hand.
Pine nuts.
These pine nuts are my favorite ingredient. Abu Zuz is a master. The skewer grilling produces a magnificent kebab with grilled onions and tomatoes. We are joined for this lamb feast by the pastor of Bethlehem's First Baptist Church, Dr. Naim Khoury. And you know what Isaiah 55 verse 1 says? Ho, everyone who thirsts, come ye to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. Kebab.
Fresh.
One for you,
Tender.
and one for me, and one for you.
Thank you.
Kebab. Lamb shishlik, lamb chops, lamb kebab. The three lambs from one. This is all that's left, a burnt sacrifice. After that delicious lunch, it's time for some touring. And of course, the main site in Bethlehem is the Church of the Nativity.
This is the oldest church in the Holy Land.
Built originally by Emperor Constantine's mother, Queen Helena, in the 4th century over the site of Yeshua's birthplace. Ever since, this has been one of the most important pilgrimage destinations for Christians.
The floor of the first church, the church of Queen Helena, mother of Constantine, the 4th century church. Emperor Justinian, he wanted to enlarge the church, and he raised the floor 60 centimeter to protect the first floor, and he added the narthex, that area, also to the church. He added another 2 columns. Luke chapter 2 spoke about the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph. They came from Nazareth to here, to Bethlehem, after the order of Augustus Caesar for census. Everyone should come to his own town to registrate for the census. When they came, the house in Bethlehem used to divide 2 parts. Lower part, until today, the lower part used for animal, upper part for the human. When they came here, they didn't find place on the upper room. They find place down where is the animals. That's why, explain, Jesus born in a stable. That's the birthplace for Jesus Christ. Why 14? Because 14 generations, from Abraham to David. From David, there's another 14 to exile. 14 from the exile to Jesus Christ. After the birth, she carried the baby and put him down here, in the manger. And on the left-hand side, you will see the altar of the 3 wise men, where they came and dismounted here and gifted Jesus Christ the gold, frankincense, and myrrh.